The seventh step to financial freedom is all about taking everything that we've learned over the last 6 steps and taking it from our conscious to our subconscious. And that is what we'll be going through today. Hi, my name is James Corsia and welcome to the Money Paradox podcast. And that's right, we were going through that 7th step. And to be honest, it feels like only yesterday we went through the first up. These steps have come on very quickly, and this really is all about giving you that bite-sized piece of each step so that you can see it in its entirety. Over the next few weeks, we'll be going through each of these topics in more detail to really make it a bit more practical and more hands-on for you. So let's jump in. What does this step really mean? Well, we've learned quite a bit around this subject. And it's all very good learning a lot of information around how to become financially free and implementing it into your own life to making sure it happens. But we don't want to be spending a lot of time doing this every week, every month, because it's just not sustainable. We're just not going to do it. Something else comes up into our life, like another emergency, some kind of exam or family issue, or work gets really busy. And what happens? The thing that we were previously focusing on, like how to become financially free, goes out the window. And we don't want that to happen, do we? So this step is really preventing that from happening and almost making sure this embeds for the long run, because that's really the secret to the success in all of this. So how do we do that? Well, we do it from taking it from our conscious, where we're constantly thinking about it. It's quite draining in our conscious mind, to our subconscious. It plays on in the background. We don't have to think about it. It becomes part of what we do and what we think on a daily basis. Well, how do we do that? Well, there's 2 main ways. One through automation and one through simplification. So what do I mean by this? Well, automation is about taking all of the steps that we've achieved up until now, that we've put together, and obviously you need to kind of customize it, make it specific to your own situation. But you take all of that, everything that you've learned, and then you think, from all of what I know I need to do, how many of those steps do I not need to do, right? Because if we don't need to do it, then why should we, right? Why can't we get somebody else to do it? Maybe we enjoy it, fine. But the more we can offload onto our plate, onto somebody else's plate, the better. Or just make it automatic. So it happens behind the scenes mechanically. So a super simple example is, if you think about payments, like paying off credit cards each month, paying bills each month, checking certain things are coming through your accounts and so on. A lot of that people do manually. And they like to do that because it gives them a certain level of control. If you're not like that, great. But if you are, listen now. The issue with that is it's quite mentally draining. It takes a lot of time to do that each month, but also you're always constantly thinking about, has that payment gone through? Have I got enough money in my bank account to make sure that money can come through okay? We don't want to do that. We want it to be as automatic as possible. And we do it by creating a system. So we think, right, okay, so what are all the payments coming in and coming out in our account? And how do we make sure that happens without us having to touch it? And doing so in a way where it's risk-free, so that it's coming in, but we don't risk not having enough money there. Well, there's a few things we can do. So for example, we can have a float. So instead of constantly having 0 as our bottom line, right? And constantly thinking, right, well, we spend our money all the way up to 0 at the end of the month. And and then we get our money come in. We get our income come in. And then, we're spending it every month. And as we get to the end of the month, we're kind of scrimping and saving and making sure that no payments go out that hit us into overdraft. That is a bad way of managing our finances. A good way is to have a float. So for example, we say £2,000 is our new 0, right? When we get to 2,000, that's 0, right? And so when we know we're getting close to that, we don't want to be going lower. So what do I mean by that? It means that you put £2,000, save your savings, into your account, and so that you know that you can work down towards working through the money you have to spend that month, but you still have money still left in that £2,000 to ensure that you don't get passed into negative by mistake. Now, Some of you might be thinking, I don't have £2,000 to put into my account as some kind of float. That's fine. Whatever you have, if it's 500, if it's 1,000, do that. If you have nothing and you're severely in debt, no problem. The first thing you want to be saving towards is that float. So if it's going to take you a month, 3 months, 6 months to build that float up first, great. That can be your first challenge, because that starts to give you room in life, room when it comes to your finances. And that's really empowering, right? I know a lot of people, and you look at their finances, they got a lot of money. They got a lot of assets, a lot of investments. And to be honest, I used to do this because, I'm very passionate about this subject. I'm constantly looking for ways to invest my money. And by doing that, I would squeeze all of the money that I had into various investments. But what would happen is I would leave no money in my account. And so I'm constantly stressed, and I'd have all these big amounts of money coming in and coming out of my account. And there was this constant level of underlying anxiety, because I never quite knew whether one of these payments were going to hit me into negative, cause charges, make my bank view me as a poor manager of my money. It might hit my credit rating. All of these things I didn't want to have to handle, and I didn't want to have to happen to my situation. It was only until I realized, actually I don't need to constantly make sure everything is somewhere useful. Having that float there is extremely useful. It also means you've got a bit of money just sitting there. If something comes up and you need to access it very quickly before you can take it from somewhere else where it's a little bit more difficult to access, it's there, right? It's ready for you. Now, it comes with a bit of responsibility, right? We don't want to be using that £2,000 for that extremely important night out, the next Saturday when you want to go party and you see that £2,000 in your account. That's probably not a good way to be spending it, but it's there as an emergency and as a fallback if for whatever reason you go below your nominal zero. Okay, I hope that was helpful. So that's one example. Another example is to do with all of the the payments of your bills, of your credit cards and so on. You want to be doing that automatic. You definitely don't want that to be manual. And if you have this buffer in your account, then having the ability to do it automatic works fine, because if whatever mistake happens and your income comes later or after the payments are coming out, then that buffer allows that cash flow issue. In the crazy world of business, we'd call this working capital. You almost think about that £2,000 if you are a business-minded person is like working capital. Working capital just simply means a bit of money as a buffer between money coming in and money coming out. So that is about automating, okay? So we want to be making it as simple as possible, right? Okay, so I've given you two examples. We want to create that buffer to facilitate the automation, and we want to be making those payments automatically, right? The second one is to simplify. So there's a lot of things that we are working through and we've come to understand we need to do to become financially free now as they're kind of gearing up, but also kind of regularly going forward. Well, if we think about all of that stuff, right, there's a lot of things we need to kind of know and be aware of and so on. But if you really reduce it down to the kind of minimum steps you need to do, often it's very few, okay? So I really challenge you to think about that in your own situation. From all what we've learned, all the different videos you've seen, right? Think, what are the minimum steps I need to do up front, and then on an ongoing basis, say weekly or monthly, to make sure I'm on track to my own financial success. Okay, so what are they? Cut them down and keep cutting them down. Keep trying to reduce those down into the smallest number of steps. As you go on, you might want to add some steps, remove some steps, that's fine. It's a dynamic process, but always look to simplify. And when you're looking at those steps, think, okay, so these are the steps I need to do. Of those steps, how many of those can I get somebody else to do, right? So for example, do you have a PA through work? Do you have somebody that supports you if you're through your work that you could pass on some of those steps to? Now, some of you are fortunate to do that. Some of you are fortunate not able to do that. That's absolutely fine. But if you have that option, great. Other options are, say, for example, to speak to your bank. So you think about some of those. Maybe your bank could do them for you. For example, to alert you with certain messages if you're running low in your account, rather than having to constantly think to check your account, right? Maybe some steps you just simply don't need to do. It was just for your own kind of reassurance, but actually in practice isn't needed. Often a lot of things are just kind of things that you needed to be aware of or understand, but really practically you don't need to be doing on a consistent basis. And by writing it down into that reduced list, it empowers you. It makes you realize that what you need to do isn't as complicated or as big as you first thought. The concept of becoming financially free might feel big and kind of intimidating at first, but as you kind of come to, it's almost like, I don't know, think about, if any of you know a language, right? You come to learn a language and at the beginning it all feels so big and overwhelming and confusing. And then as you learn more about it and it becomes more natural to you, if you reduced it down to like the simple steps of what allows you to maintain that language, for example, it's quite simple, right? It's a kind of similar concept in this area, right? First stage is to kind of understand and expand your mind to the possibilities and awareness around the subject. But then once you've come to understand that, you reduce it down to the smallest number of steps. And the reason why we're doing this is to make it kind of simple and easy to do, right, on an ongoing basis. So when things come up in the future, it's okay because this isn't taking much of your time and most of what you're doing is kind of in the background. So ideally, what you want to be working towards is once every month for about an hour or two, you want to be monitoring your spending. Money coming in, money coming out. You want to be looking at your spending plan, right? And seeing how you're doing against that. Just checking it. It really shouldn't take you any longer than that. If it is, you want to be reassessing and checking it. Now, the first few times you do it, you might want to do it weekly to get used to it. And then you can move to monthly. But as you get used to it and get comfortable and confident with it, it really should just take you 1 or 2 hours. The other thing is that every maybe 6 months to a year, you want to be looking at your investments, just checking it. Again, should just be no more than 1 or 2 hours, just to look at where you've invested your money, see how it's progressed, how it's done compared to what you thought it would be. And then you can decide to what we call, rebalance that portfolio based on how it's done, right? So if one's gone up really high, another one's actually dropped, then what you would do is you'd move money from the one that's gone up to one that's gone down, so the ratio between the things you've invested are similar to what they were before. Now that sounds a bit complicated, and why would you do that? Why would you put money into a thing that's not done well? Well, it's to make sure that how your risk is spread between different things remains constant over time. There's a reason why you picked that ratio between the one thing and the other before. You want to be keeping that unless something substantially has changed. I'm not going to go into that in any more detail in this video. We'll go into it in a lot more in other videos and why we need to do that. But all I want to be kind of making the point here is that when it comes to investments, you shouldn't need to be doing this every week, every day, constantly checking. I see a lot of people constantly looking at the valuations of the different things that they've invested in on a daily basis, or even multiple times a day. Oh, it's gone up by 1%. Oh, it's gone down by 3%. That's just noise, right? I do not encourage trading. If you are a trader, great. But for the long run, to build wealth on a sustainable long-term basis, then you want to be invested in the long term. And when you're invested in the long term, those movements on a daily or weekly basis really mean very, very little. Really, it's those long-term trends, okay? So what I want to be kind of coming back to here is that you don't need to be spending a lot of time managing money and working towards financial freedom. It really should take you a little bit of time, right? 1 or 2 hours a month to check in on your spending, and 1 or 2 hours every 6 months to a year checking in on your investments. That's it. If it's taking you longer, you need to look into why and then do something about it. Unless you're crazy like me and love the subject and like kind of spending more time checking in and how's it doing and analyzing in different ways, that's great. If you enjoy it, great, and you feel it's making progress, brilliant. But often when people spend more time looking at stuff, often, especially in the subject of money, they tend to do worse. Kind of sounds a bit crazy, but the reason is that they overthink about it, right? So they'll, for example, they'll look at their investments, they think, oh, my money's gone down 2% this week. Oh, why has that happened? Oh, it's because Brexit's happening, or because this new politicians is coming in and this thing's going on. Oh, maybe I should pull my money out or move my money into something else. Start overthinking about it, and they start getting worked up and emotionally affected by all of the things that are happening. But if we take a step back and stay cool about our longer term plan, often we allow ourselves to not get caught up in the day-to-day noise of what plays out, right? It's the same with our spending. Don't get too caught up in it. But I do encourage you to stay aware of how you're spending when you're spending. Every time you're spending, think, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing in terms of how I want to spend my money, right? But when it really, really comes down to keep it as simple as possible, all you need to be thinking is, let me start again. Is what I want to buy right now, does that fit in with the spending plan I've previously committed? If yes, great. If no, then don't. That's it. The main part of this is just kind of pre-planning, right? Creating some kind of space within it to do different things. But if you've committed to something in advance, stick with it. It's kind of like discipline, right? So to summarize, 2 key things: we want to automate what it is that we need to do to become financially free, and we need to simplify it, okay, and turn it into some form of system. So what we're doing is saying all of that stuff that we know, we juice it down to the smallest number of steps, and then make sure that we're following those in the simplest way possible, okay? And then by doing that, when things come up in the future, we're not going to get caught up in those things and drop the ball on all of what we've planned. I hope that was helpful. If you did find it useful, please do let me know. Like the video, comment, let me know what you liked about it, what you think you'd like to see differently going forward. Any additional information you want to see me talk about in future videos, let me know. I can bring those in. I want to make sure this content is as valuable as possible for you. Again, if you think there's anybody in your life who would really benefit from watching this video or some of the other content I've talked through, please do share it with them. I would love for you to kind of spread the message and pass this on. The mission for me to be providing this information is to make sure it's as valuable as possible and it's helping as many people as possible. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much.